Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the John Minnie podcast, where we explore all things urban horticulture indoors and out through the perspectives of the many amazing people who have made it their career. I'm your host, Mark Minnie, president of John Minnie Distinctive Landscapes, and at John Minnie, our team's purpose is to make places beautiful by bringing nature to the places people live, work, and play. Today, we'll be sitting down with two pros in the industry, Liana Hutchin and Jack Harris. Together, they have just shy of 50 years of experience with indoor landscapes, also known as interiorscaping. In today's episode, Jack and Liana share why they believe indoor landscapes are important. They'll share decade-long shifts in how people think about indoor plants and landscapes, our perspectives on why indoor landscapes are evolving beyond just a trend and becoming an integral part of the built environment. We'll discuss how indoor landscapes support a client's brand by emphasizing their values. I think this is a really interesting part of the conversation. We'll talk about how investing in plants within the office is an effective way to not only invest in your interior design, but how it's also an investment in your people. And we touch on the ever so popular concept of biophilia and how it relates to the development of indoor landscapes. All right, without further ado, let's head over to our conversation with Liana and Jack. Welcome, Liana, Jack, to the John Minnie podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, pumped to be here with you guys. I'm excited to chat. You guys are two incredibly talented professionals in the interior landscape industry, teammates of mine too. I'm honored to work with you guys. You also bring, I feel like, significant experience to the table working on indoor landscapes. But I think you're going to have different perspectives because you also have different tenures in the industry, both long tenures. I think Liana, probably like 6-7 years.
6 years, yeah.
Yeah. Jack, you, how many years in the industry now?
42.
42? You're
42.
ready right on the spot. Not counting.
Thought that question might come up.
No, that's amazing, and a significant portion of that is obviously operating in New York City area. But you actually have a unique perspective. But you've also managed branches in cities all over the country. So I think that's a really cool experience.
Yeah, no question. Big difference. New York is still New York is the best.
I love it. I agree with that. But I think it's interesting because we're going to talk about, obviously, we're diving into personally why we feel like indoor landscapes are important. A lot of the conversation is going to, revolve around urban horticulture and cities. And we talk a lot about, New York City and how maybe that translates to other cities, but you actually have direct experience in other cities. So it's exciting to add to the mix. All right. You guys want to dive right in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go for it.
I mean, first, do you guys think your perspectives on why indoor landscapes are important are going to be drastically different?
I'm really curious to hear Jack's perspective with, you have so much industry experience, and I only having 6 years probably have a different perspective, but I think that we're probably both going to agree with whatever points that we both bring up. That's my feeling on it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't think it's drastically different.
Cool. I leaned into that word, drastic. Yeah. I'm trying to spark some.
I don't think so.
Some excitement.
I think
there we go.
Not where we are now. Drastically, historically different in my regard. As Liana's pointing out, that I started many moons ago. So what the business was like and the industry was like at that point is different than where we are today.
Cool.
So there's the drastic difference.
True. That's a good point.
But where we are in 2024, I think we're both on the same page.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we dive in? Why don't you guys share why you believe personally that indoor landscapes are important?
So
don't be shy.
Yeah, let's test see if we're on the same page. But the biggest importance that I think, and I'll preach this till I die, is the mental wellness benefits that indoor plants can offer. I think that they have a lot of different within that category, a lot of different benefits to it, but there's one in particular that really resonates with me, but I also see it a lot in New York City. That is why I think it's like the most important thing. And I'm kind of going to go on a bit of a tangent right now. So I think that there's a huge anxiety epidemic going on in the world right now, or maybe in America. I can't speak for other countries, but and particularly in the millennial generation, which makes up the biggest portion of our workforce. I think I read somewhere that by 2025, so next year, 75% of the workforce is going to be millennials. And, a lot of stress and anxiety with millennials. Another thing I read was that their productivity is tied to their self-worth. So it's like just increasing all of that stress. That's like a big key factor. And being that we're such a big part of the workforce, I think that solving this stress issue is a big importance. And indoor landscapes can have such a great impact on that. So for me, when I am designing landscapes, like I love that I can be able to offer just like a little bit of relief and calm in the product and service that I provide, or that we provide as a company, to kind of help aid that. So that's my number one.
That's really interesting. I didn't expect you to go there, but I think it's like spot on. There's definitely, stress, anxiety. I don't know the data and stats as much as it sounds like you research, but I agree that's an issue going on. And how an indoor landscape, you think about it, like we all, I know we all, because we love plants in this room, but a lot of people bring plants into their home, right? To soften that environment, to go home and unwind and relax. Mm-hmm. But we spend so much time outside of our home. I mean, we all work, we all need to work. We're all, connected to how our self-worth and our productivity. So you go to that office or that workspace, why aren't you bringing those elements of like softening that experience and that calmness, or, that with things like indoor landscapes as well, that those spaces need to be attended to for that same reason as well. So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah,
agreed.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I started in the business in the early 80s, it was everybody just they thought it was like the thing to do, get plants. A corporate, they needed to fill the space with plants. I don't think anybody thought about the reason behind it. Mm-hmm. Why are we doing this? It was more so the thing to do. Fill the space with plants. Obviously, back then, there was a lot of jungle look where plants were just almost overused in spaces. And so the business came to you. It was just lots and lots of, run there, do this, order the plants, make sure we get it in there. Do you want 50 or do you want 100? I mean, it was that kind of business.
You can never overuse the plants.
What's that?
I always joke. You can never overuse plants.
You can never overuse it.
I'm
a little
joking.
bit. Maybe every once in a while. Yeah. Every blue moon.
Yeah.
However, I do think the world has changed drastically in the sense that there's a thought behind it now. Now we're starting to figure out, why are we putting plants inside? And I'm on the same page with you. And I would call it that, bringing something alive into almost a stale environment. All our office spaces are very, clean and, stagnant. Mm-hmm. And then you put something in there that's going to live besides yourself. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, creates such a different environment for the people that are working in that space, which in turn leads to less stress. And there's lots of studies on this from Oxford on across the educational spectrum. So I do believe you are onto something in that regard of going to the future, kind of a now thing, of course, mm-hmm. because of the workforce constantly being dynamic and changing. But I do believe that we'll see on and on and on plants being used for a true reason behind it, that, it's helping productivity, helping the people, come to an office that is much more pleasing than a clean, like, sterile environment.
Yeah.
So
that's really
Definitely.
interesting. I think that's cool. Like, and I heard my dad talk about it. Like, the indoor landscape industry has existed, beyond this time. But I've heard you guys talk about like the late '70s, the '80s, really when it like really took off. And it's interesting to hear you say it like that. Like, we weren't thinking about the reason. It was almost like it was just in, right? And it was like a trend, right? But now it's shifting towards more like why do we want these plants in there? And I think that's important because it transcends from just becoming a trend, having plants inside, which is not good. Trends come and go, to like, no, this is an important part of our life and our society and our environment right now. We need to have indoor landscapes, and there's a reason why. So it's cool that we're like unpacking and having those reasons why we need these landscapes versus just a trend.
yeah, without a doubt, I think, as Liana said, not only is the workforce, but now the decision makers are millennials, right?
Sure.
And that's going on.
That's a really good point.
So now the people who are thinking about to use a company to provide an indoor landscaping, well, they're thinking why. They're not just thinking, oh, this is something that we should fill a place up with plants. Let's talk about our people and our employees and what the benefit is for them. So that decision making is now going to continue to change in a positive way, and I feel, for our industry.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I just find it interesting that like you guys didn't use even like aesthetics or beauty as like why they're important, which is it's interesting. Like, I think that's a really important reason why you would introduce like plants or landscape indoors. But like it almost went deeper when you talked about like, the mental or the physical or the psychological well-being of bringing these plants in. And I'm sure it's connected, right? Like the aesthetics of it. But it was interesting to not even hear you guys like use that word in your description.
Well, I think originally when it became like the sick building syndrome, right? That was like a thing, right? You couldn't open a window in New York. So if you can't open a window in New York, what do, right? People started complaining about indoor air pollution. And I lobbied for an indoor Clean Air Act, which included the use of plants. And Dr. Wolverton from NASA studied it up in the space lab and all kinds of fun stuff, right? So that side of it and the plants taking out the pollutants that are in your office is still there, right? I mean, you still see it come up. It never took off like I thought it would, that piece of the business, but it's obviously a benefit, so not only do you have the aesthetic side of it, but now you have something that's taking out chemicals out of your air that you're breathing in your office. So home run, right? I mean, so you're getting a little of both worlds.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah, I think like the aesthetics of it is probably why people put it in the spaces. But I think I took your question when you said the importance of it. Like, the reasoning for why we do it is because of, these benefits, the health benefits, to just kind of generalize it. So, I mean, whether people realize that that's why they're doing it or not, I think that's the important factor of why they're in
like
there.
the deeper
reason.
It kind of has to be hand in hand. Like, if you introduce like a not aesthetically pleasing landscape, I'm sure it wouldn't serve those health reasons, right?
Yeah.
You'd walk in and be like, oh, what's going on here? It looks awful.
It could have the reverse effects, I think.
Reverse effects.
Or if the plants are dying.
You got to do both.
I don't know.
Right.
You can't just put plants in there and like, doesn't matter what it looks like. So go to a client level, because you're just talking about like the decision makers just a second ago. What from their perspective, and you guys obviously have a lot of experience interacting directly with the client, what do you feel are the most compelling reasons why indoor landscapes are important from the client's perspective when you're speaking with them?
I think the number one thing is branding. And I say this because I think that there are spaces where people work, the offices, or even like shops, restaurants, multi-unit residential buildings, etc., are all a representation of that company's values, of their interests, of the style that they are, the kind of culture that they want to portray. So I think that these landscapes can help portray that. So I think that like they're investing in a plant program that is going to express their branding. And landscapes can express so many different ways. If you have maybe like a financial institution that wants a more clean, streamlined kind of planter and plant situation, or if you have maybe like a marketing agency or like a tech company, like a startup that wants to be more funky and have like some crazy colors and forms and textures, can all be expressed through plants and of course other interior design things, furniture, etc. But I think that for them, it's a good way for them to express that and kind of help not only show their employees the type of business that they are, but also show their clients.
Visitors, right?
Yeah, because, people like to buy into companies that show that they're caring about not only their employees and their health, but also just like their appearance.
Value line.
Yeah.
I make purchasing decisions based on like, I feel like, is that organization I'm about to buy from, are they aligned with my values? And I think like they're how they comport themselves and present themselves from physical materials to what they say matters. Yeah,
exactly. Like if you think about it, if you're going into like a shop or a restaurant and there's like a really cool ambiance, they got, cool plants everywhere, and you want to hang out there, you want to stay longer, you're going to spend more money there. You're going to maybe post about it and take pictures, like you have a better experience. And so therefore you're going to have more respect for that brand. So I don't know. I think branding is number
That's really
one.
interesting. Can I throw out a random question? It might be a tricky question. So what do you think it says about a brand if you walk in and there are no plants in indoor landscape? Like, what does that conjure up, or what do you think that it says about a brand?
I guess it depends on the brand, but I'm going to use the word that Jack used before, is sterile. Like there's obviously, you could have a really nice space maybe that's like all granite and like, hard lines and clean and simple. But I feel like you're not going to connect to it as a human because, that's like, we have an affinity for nature. So we, even without knowing it, we see plants and it just like calms us. It gives us like a little bit, I don't know, that like respect. So I don't know.
Sterile.
I might like, I would opt. I think if you show people two pictures, one like the same space, one with plants and one with none, most of the population are people that you.
I agree. I think I look at it as that company with the plants is successful. Like the word, like they not only care about their employees, which you discussed, but also I do believe a part of it is their image, right? What is their image to others that come into the space? They come into the space and they say, well, this company is successful. Look at how they have handled their internal space. And now I want to do business with them, right? Because who doesn't want to do business with a successful brand? So there's that side of it. And I think the other side from the client's perspective is, and John Minnie, your dad, said this to me many moons ago, was it's an inexpensive way to decorate. That was a line that he used. Our industry is, when you look at the cost of a build out of a new space, and then our piece is minimal comparative to the carpeting, to the furniture, and even the painting and everything else that goes on. So I believe that has to play into the customer's decision making, right? So I truly believe there's that side of it, regardless of the millennials starting to make more decisions for us and for the business and for the industry, the customers thinking about the image that they are portraying to either internal or external folks. So that is something that's always going to play into it, the dollars and cents of the world.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really important point. You can't like not discuss when you from the client's perspective, you cannot not think about the cost and the finances of it and the cost benefit analysis that you brought up. That's a really good point.
Yeah. I think there's one other thing too that like clients often think of, or the reason why they're doing it is, and this kind of ties into what I said earlier, but is like offering those wellness benefits. And what I've noticed on going on a lot of appointments is I'm starting to like hear the reasons why they're putting it in, not just like how they want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it like, even if they don't mention it, they always say that they want to have like plants for everyone in the space to access or see. It's not just like maybe the higher ups or just like certain spaces. It's access for everyone. And so now it's almost becoming like its own benefit to add to like PTO and subsidized healthcare. It's like access to nature is like a benefit now that companies offer for their employees. So
makes sense.
They are including that in their programs.
That's really interesting. One, that's a meaningful shift, I think, like going beyond just like walking to an appointment saying like, I want plants, like this is what I want to do. To I want indoor plants. This is why I want indoor plants, and having that conversation with clients is a meaningful shift. And then, you relate it to benefits. And I think that is it connects to that cost decision, right? It's not just like, hey, I'm decorating and what's the cost of that versus other alternatives, but they're treating it like a benefit. When you think about like an organization thinks about their benefits and their PTO, they're weighing that against the deeper economic implications. Like I want people to take paid time off so that they're refreshed and then they're more productive when they're working and they're having a better work-life balance, right? That's a people decision and an economic decision. Same thing with the plants. It's like there's an economic decision, but it also has, hidden well-being or like less direct well-being and economic, implications. Like they're trying to measure like, well, is designing it with an indoor landscape going to increase productivity and wellness and stuff like that. So I think those are meaningful shifts. That's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool that people are actually saying that. It's such a home run. Yeah,
I love to hear it. Let me help you.
Exactly.
I agree.
I'm with you on this one.
So, I mean, that was kind of my next question is, you both have, significant experience over the past, years. Have you been seeing, what are those notable shifts you've seen in like the importance of indoor landscapes from either your perspective or the clients over time?
I think part of this that we haven't touched on as well as the nurturing side of it. I think most people have a trait that they'd like to nurture things, and having the plants, even if we are the professional company that are taking care of them, there's been many times where we go into a space and we're looking at a program that's there currently, and some of it's not looking as it should. And you say, well, we should remove that. And they're like, no. I got that plant 20 years ago when I got promoted. And they've been taking care of it. I take care of it sometimes when the company that we're using currently didn't really do a great job. So there's that side to it where everybody, wants to see things alive, right? And be, and grow, right? Who doesn't want that? And I think there's that side to it that is coming more and more, even though it's always been there. In my experience, you'd almost have to tell people that it's there, where now, as Liana's saying, it actually is part of their reasoning. So I think that's so cool that people are becoming hip to not only to have plants in a space because we live in the concrete jungle, so to speak, in New York, but there's a reason behind it, not only because it just, doesn't just look cool.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess mine is like a little bit more focused just because I've only been doing this for a couple of years. So I don't really have like, there's only so many shifts that can happen, right?
Sure.
But and
6 years though. There's a good lot can happen.
Yeah.
Especially the past 6 years.
Definitely went through COVID.
Yes, well, that was what I was going to bring up, but I feel like, I'm beating a dead horse because I'm always bringing up COVID, but like it was such a significant shift, especially in our industry. Like I feel like indoor landscapes went from being just like a cool, hip, trendy way to kind of decorate your office to being like, now these landscapes are offering security and comfort and calmness and everything that us as humans were looking for during that time. And now that, the pandemic has subsided, it's like a non-negotiable. Those things are still there, but now it's like, that's why we're using it. So
Excellent
I think that
point.
was a big shift in the industry.
Agreed.
And I'm sure there was other shifts prior to me being in the industry as well that kind of made those big changes. And then one other thing too I noticed is the term biophilia has gained a lot of speed in the last couple of years, even though I think it came out in the 60s or got coined long ago, but like lately it's been picking up a lot of speed. And I hate to use the word trend because I feel like it's gonna keep going on forever, but I think that the awareness of it in interior design and with architects is so big now. And obviously that brings in our industry into it, which is awesome. But I think that since there's such a focus on it, that has also been a big shift into like why we're doing higher volume now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't call biophilia a trend because, and it's interesting you bring that up. I'm laughing because I like to, joke internally with teammates. Biophilia, right, is like the psychological theory that like all humans have some kind of like innate connection to nature. And it does. It became, we can put it in the show notes. I think it was maybe in the 60s or the 80s that the psychologist, I don't want to get his name wrong, so I'll write it in the show notes, wrote this theory. I kind of laughed because I'm like, we've been talking about this forever. This is what we do. We always knew people had some kind of like connection to plants and like earth and like natural elements. I'm like, it was beautifully like, contextualized and explained through like the theory of biophilia. But like, I feel like humans have always known we needed nature in our lives to operate. Definitely not
put a name on it now.
It takes a while for everyone to get on board and understand. It's kind of, I know when we were first discussing the term,
connection to like trees,
a disease. We're like, what's that?
Sick buildings.
I hope he doesn't have biophilia.
Yeah. But even like, before that, you talk about like sick building syndrome was a thing.
Oh yeah.
Couldn't even open the windows in New York. Well, that's the point. Like when you're in this concrete jungle, you want to be able to open the window and have some connection to like fresh air and nature and like, let's put a plant in here. And then I can visually be drawn to like, all right, this is like, I'm not super disconnected from the natural world, right?
Very much so.
It's existed in many forms.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I want to, add one more note onto, like, this is spiraled off of, the COVID pandemic, but the work from home era was like obviously big during that time. And now it's still very big as well, or it's more like transitionary. I don't know.
Hybrid.
Hybrid. Yeah, that's the right word. So I think spaces are focusing more on amenities in like collaboration units as opposed to like individual spaces, even in, multi-unit residential buildings, like what amenities can everyone use? And also in workplaces, like you see crazy amenities, you see nap rooms, you see bars sometimes, you see just like gyms or like large floors that are just strictly for like connecting. And I think there's a big focus on that now because they're trying to get people to come back from being in the work from home era. So, and all of those spaces, you're trying to make look nice. You're probably going to add some sort of plant program to them. So I think that was like a big shift as well.
And man, that's so interesting. And I have this, completely like, thinking into the future take on that. It's so early. in that shift too. Like, we think we're settling into hybrid now, right? We all went and worked from home during COVID. Now we're settling to hybrid. I don't think we're settling into anything yet. I think we're still figuring it out. It's only been, what, 4 years?
Yeah.
But how many decades, hundreds of years have we worked? Let's go to a workplace. Let's go to a workplace. Let's go to, all of a sudden we know in 3 years. I'm like, I think we're still figuring this out. One of the reasons I think it's actually going to, personally, I'm guessing it's going to shift even more back to away from work from home and more to a higher percentage of the workplace is because you brought up like health and mental anxiety issues. I think being isolated at home probably amplified a lot of our stresses and anxieties and loneliness. We're social creatures.
Yeah.
But you also can't go straight back to like the office and have an extremely stressful environment, right? So we're still figuring out that balance. I think getting, more socialization back via the workforce and going back to the office more is important for us as humans, but also then going back to spaces that are comfortable, exciting, and calming, and all these things you're saying. So I think we're still like seeing that shift like evolve, and probably will for the next like 10, 20 years.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think the work from home, the water cooler side of life, as it's all called, you miss that. You miss walking in and talking about, did you see the game last night?
Yeah.
How are the kids? How's your dog? Whatever it is, that doesn't transpire when you're working from home. So I think that side of it, that socialization side of it, is a need that isn't being fulfilled when you just work from home. And I think that you will, and I agree with you, Mark, that you will see the trend go back to the way it's always been.
Yeah.
This was a blip on the screen, so to speak, a bad blip, as we all know, but here we are, right? Yeah. And what do we do with it as people who are making decisions of workspace, of employees, of what are we going to do to make the space that much more inviting? So, we play our part in it.
Yeah, agree. It's all evolving still.
Yeah, no question, man.
Now, I'm going to shift it a little bit. I feel like we use the word concrete jungle a couple times. We're referencing like New York City a lot.
Yeah.
How about, relative to indoor spaces outside the city? Do you guys think there are any differences in the importance of investing in an indoor landscape, maybe in a space in the city versus a space in maybe, a more suburban setting, like a suburban commercial building, or not?
Yeah, I think in the city, it's more of a necessity for sure. Because, like, for instance, we're sitting here, we're looking out at the lawn, all these beautiful trees.
Yeah, we're just north of the city, right?
Like and we're, about 30 miles outside of the city, right? So you get that. And you walk out of your space and you walk out into a landscape and trees and, and you breathe in, I want to breathe the fresh air, right? In New York, you walk out onto a sidewalk, right?
Noise,
lots of stuff going on. Yeah, exactly. Horns beeping, bus fumes, whatever it is. Comparatively, so I think there's a big difference. I think, hence my opinion anyway, is that, there is a difference. In New York, it really, really becomes a total need, where in the suburbs it's a need, but at least you have some fulfillment of nature by walking into your office.
Sure. That's a good point.
Yeah. I'm going to piggyback on that. I think it's the same thing. I definitely agree. I mean, I think access to nature is important for all walks of life, but you are probably getting more of it in the suburbs and especially in rural areas. So the city, it's harder to get that. And so that's why the importance is a little bit more on city indoor landscapes.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Stakes are a little higher.
Yeah.
So, I think you guys kind of answer this, but I'll ask it more directly. Indoor landscapes, are they in your opinion, or maybe even like some data you have, are they becoming more, I don't know what the right word, integral, or I guess prioritized in construction or urban development?
I think it's like hard to answer this because we're doing it every day, right? We're like we're seeing new landscapes being installed every day. So we're like, of course it's getting, gaining momentum. But just to take it outside of work for a moment, if I'm with like friends or family and we're going into a public space or a restaurant out to eat or whatever, if there is plants there, I've noticed now versus maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago, like I see their faces light up. I see them get so excited. If there's an option between spaces, they want to go to the one that has more plants.
Mm-hmm.
They, their mood changes. And like, that's, in my opinion, some pretty hard evidence for why they're important. And I'm seeing that like across the board all the time now, whereas maybe I didn't in the past. So I feel like it's gaining a lot more momentum. I think also people just have more of an interest in plants as a hobby these days as well. So they can relate to it. Like they might see a plant that they have in their own home in a space that they go out in public in. And so like there's that connection there. A lot of millennials aren't having kids anymore, but they're caring for plants instead. A little bit easier. So I not to keep talking about that generation.
It depends on the kid.
How much light you're giving it.
Some could argue otherwise, I guess. But I don't know. I kind of think it's a big piece of the pie right now. So
yeah, I agree. I think we're seeing it spec'd more and more from designers, landscape architects, general contractors. The use of vertical space that was never heard of, right? When I started in this industry, if I said, we should put a green wall up there, they probably would have, locked me up. So I'm not sure. These days it's such a commonplace now to use the vertical space, which is such a home run now for us, as well as obviously the space itself gets dressed up in a different manner. You're not taking up the floor space, which is always, the most expensive space, right? Especially in New York City. So there's that aspect of it. And I think you said it before, is those communal spaces, the amenity side of life, they are being designed so that a group of people can meet on a rooftop, right? The green roof side of life, the terraces side of life, the 12th floor has part gym, a part is the lounge, maybe a part of it is the bar, that kind of stuff. And what do they do with that? They need to utilize plants, right? So I do think that we are seeing that that way of the world becoming more and more of a norm in projects that we're working on that are 5 years out. So.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like I would almost say like 7 years ago, I don't think it was like any less thought of like, hey, we want to integrate indoor landscapes, but it was less thought of from like the design phase, pre-construction, right? I think that it's becoming like we were already like saying, hey, we want an indoor landscape. Now that's where 5-7 years maybe to today, it's being thought of during that like design phase before construction, which is important because then it allows us to get involved and with the designers to think through like how it can be done in the most cost-effective way, but also the most successful way from a horticultural standpoint. So I think that's important. Like it's being thought of earlier in the construction process.
No question it is, especially the lighting side of life, right? Which
all the environmental elements, right?
Exactly.
Critical.
Yeah, critical stuff.
Yep. Good point. We missing any reasons you guys want to add for the importance of indoor landscapes? You'd like to share?
I think Liana nailed it when she started this conversation today, in the sense that the peace side of life. I think we're all searching for a little peace in our life, and I know personally, I've had a couple of plants that I've had for over 30 years. And when there's a problem with those plants, and every once in a while there will be, they go through a transition. I feel it, like stress, like, oh gosh, what's happening to it? That kind of thing. I don't want to rotate it. I don't want to move it again. Maybe I overwatered it. Maybe, whatever it might have been, because it's your, so to speak, baby. So I think that side of life, the part that plants bring to an environment, the peaceful side of life, we're all searching for that in many aspects of our life. And when we can bring that to our clients and customers and to spaces and to visitors, we've won.
Awesome.
Yeah. I agree. And I want to, I guess, build on that too. I think that the reconnection to nature is super important. And for the reasons we all discussed, but I think that piece is missing sometimes especially when you don't have access to it and you don't even know that it's a missing piece of you. We're so connected. We were just talking about biophilia before, it's innate, it's in humans to have that connection to nature, not because we, once lived in it, but because we rely on it for food as well, which sustains us. So I think just having the landscapes there rebuilds that connection and fosters that for us. So I think that's a key element to it.
Awesome.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well said. All right. So I always round out our podcast episodes with this question. Doesn't have to be specific to, the topics we're talking about, but what is something you guys are both or each respectively particularly passionate about in your craft right now?
Mine's so specific. It's just
That's awesome.
It's something I've been reading a lot about lately that caught my attention, and it kind of connects to this topic actually. But it's called statistical fractals.
Okay,
I don't know if either of you are familiar, which are very commonly found in nature. But it's a continuous and complex pattern that's found that's not super harsh. So an example of it is the light that filters through trees, or the different shapes when you zoom in on a snowflake, or flames in a fire. So all nature examples, but these statistical fractals are known to have the same benefits, psychological benefits, that plants do as well. And I think it's nature again, so it's probably, all one and the same. But that specific concept is so interesting to me. And I feel like I've kind of dived deep into it. And as I'm reading about it, I think about how can I use this in a landscape in what I'm doing for work? How can I design where maybe the light comes through the plants and makes a pattern on the floor? And cool. I don't know.
Wow.
It's
just
that's awesome. Super specific.
That is cool. No, that's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine's more concrete, maybe. It's species. It's the new species. There used to be a time back in the day where there was these new plants being introduced over and over and over, right? And we try them, and most of them failed, to be honest with you. They didn't handle the indoor environment. There was a lot of trial and error. I find it fascinating that, we have a palette of plant material that we utilize consistently, right? That we know is going to survive in an indoor environment because it's grown outside for the most part, and then it goes to a shade house and then eventually onto a truck and then winds up in New York City. And it's where the heck am I, right? I don't blame the plant for not surviving sometimes, but I do think it's so neat that people come up with these hybrids, of plant material. And I'm constantly talking to our purchaser and our Florida connections to find out, what's new and exciting, what's going to work. Versus stuff so we're to stay ahead of it, stay ahead of the curve, and I think our company does do that by trying different plants in different spaces, and we experiment a lot here on our campus, which I think is something that not everybody gets to do, in their life, was to try something else that's alive and see if you could make it thrive. So that's my side of life on that end of it.
I love that.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's all I got, guys. I really enjoyed this conversation. I thought it was thought-provoking, and I really enjoyed it.
Great.
So,
Me too.
Yeah,
thank you for your time, guys.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great seeing you.
Much gratitude to Liana and Jack for sharing their unique perspectives and thoughts. Thank you to all our listeners for taking the time to be here with us today. Listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. If you guys have any questions, ideas for future episodes, or my favorite, any constructive feedback, please email us at podcast@johnmini.com. In the next few productions, we'll be shifting our content to some technical horticulture topics and a multi-part project spotlight on a daring indoor landscape. And a big final thank you, as always, to all our clients at John Mini Distinctive Landscapes. You guys allow us to make our passion our profession. None of this is possible without your support and vision to bring nature to the places people live, work, and play. This episode's a wrap. I hope you guys have a great day, and be sure to find a moment in your busy day to cherish the nature around you.